The fork slipped from my fingers and hit the china plate with a sharp clink that seemed to echo through the entire private dining room. My mother stood at the head of the long table, champagne glass raised high, her perfectly painted smile aimed at the 30 guests packed into Antonio's finest room. "And then there's my other daughter," Mom said, her voice dripping with that particular brand of affection that always preceded humiliation. "My little failure child, Tessa, still trying to figure it all out." Laughter rippled around the table. Polite, awkward, cruel. I watched my mother's face glow in the candlelight, her eyes skating past me like I was wallpaper. My older sister Kelsey giggled into her wine glass, her husband Trent squeezing her shoulder in that smug way of his. Aunt Lydia and Cousin Carol exchanged knowing looks across the table. The word failure hung in the air between us like a physical thing I could reach out and touch. I didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't make a scene. I simply stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out of my mother's 60th birthday party, the one I'd just wired $3,000 to help pay for 2 weeks earlier. The November air hit me like a slap when I pushed through Antonio's heavy oak doors. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars huddled under the flickering streetlights. I made it to my beat-up Honda before my hands started shaking. I gripped the steering wheel and stared at nothing, my breath coming out in white puffs in the cold. $3,000. I'd sent $3,000 for this party when Mom called crying about how she just wanted one nice thing for her birthday. I'd negotiated her down from 5, working overtime to cover it. And I was still the punchline. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and looked straight ahead, imagining someone watching this moment, understanding it. "My name is Tessa Reed," I said out loud to the empty car. "I'm 32 years old. I'm a cybersecurity specialist, and in 2 weeks, my mother's going to find out exactly what I really do." My voice didn't shake anymore. It was steady, clear, final. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving the laughter behind. I wasn't always the failure child. That title got assigned to me slowly, like water wearing down stone over years and years. I remember being 14, sitting at our annual family barbecue while relatives circled around Kelsey like she was the sun. "Such a natural star," they'd say. "So charming, so beautiful, so easy to love." And then they'd look at me, hunched over a book in the corner of the yard. "Tessa's just so bookish," someone would sigh. "Too intense, too quiet. She's always been different." Whenever something went wrong, a broken vase, a missed appointment, a bad grade on someone's report card, Mom would turn to me first. "Tessa, what did you do now?" It didn't matter if I was in another room when it happened. It didn't matter if I had nothing to do with it. I was the designated problem child. That night after the barbecue, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, understanding something fundamental. I'd been cast in a role I never auditioned for. The scapegoat, the difficult one. The daughter who would never quite measure up no matter what she did. I thought, if I can't be the good daughter here, I'll just have to become someone they don't control. Dad brought home a battered desktop computer from a garage sale when I was 15. The monitor had a weird green tint and the keyboard stuck in places. But when I asked if I could have it for my room, Mom's face pinched up tight. "That's junk," she said flatly, "and you already spend too much time alone in your room doing nothing productive." I took it anyway, dragging it upstairs while she shook her head. Using library books with titles like Basic Programming for Beginners, I taught myself to code late at night after everyone went to bed. The computer hummed and glowed in the darkness, and for the first time in my life, the rules were clear. No favoritism. No shifting expectations. No moving goalposts. Just pure logic. If I wrote the code correctly, it worked. If I made a mistake, I could fix it. The computer didn't care that I was disappointing or difficult or destined to fail. When Mom found out what I was doing, she laughed. "No one's going to pay you to play with computers, Tessa. That's not a real career." I didn't argue. I just thought, watch me. Just watch me. Senior year, the guidance counselor called me into her office and handed me a thick envelope. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter inside. Full scholarship, computer science program, out-of-state university. I actually gasped, reading it 3 times to make sure it was real. Dad hugged me when I showed him, lifting me off my feet for the first time since I was little. Mom glanced at the letter and shrugged, her face blank. "We'll see if you stick with it," she said. "College isn't for everyone, Tessa, especially technical stuff like that." At dinner that night, she told everyone it was cute that I thought I'd actually finish a 4-year degree. Kelsey, who was planning her wedding at the time, barely looked up from her bridal magazines. In my room that night, I stared at that letter until my eyes burned and the words blurred together. I realized it wasn't just an acceptance to college. It was a key. An exit plan. A way out of this house, this town, this role they'd written for me. I was going to take it. Move-in day arrived in August, humid and bright and suffocating. Mom spent the entire 3-hour drive criticizing my choice of sheets, my clothes, my messy hair that I'd cut short without asking her permission. When we got to the dorm, she walked through the tiny room clicking her tongue at everything. "It's so small," she said. "You sure you want to do this? It's not too late to come back home and go to community college." When it was time to leave, she gave me a stiff side hug and said quietly, so Dad couldn't hear, "Don't come crawling back when it gets hard. You made your choice." Kelsey never even got out of the car. That night, alone in my narrow dorm bed with my roommate still unpacking across the room, I felt something strange. Terror. Yes, because I was 18 and alone and scared, but also something else. Lightness. No one here knew I was the failure child. No one here had already decided I wasn't good enough. Then I called home for Thanksgiving plans and heard Mom talking to someone in the background. "She's just playing with computers. Who knows if it'll last?" 4 years later, I graduated with honors and landed my first real job as a cybersecurity analyst at a mid-sized bank in the city. I had my own desk, my own computer, my own projects that mattered. When I stopped a phishing attack in my second week, my manager actually thanked me by name in front of the whole department. I got my first big paycheck and felt like I could finally breathe. I called home to share the news, my voice bright with pride. Mom answered on the third ring. "That's great, honey," she said, her voice flat and distant. Then, after a pause that lasted too long, "So, can you help us out a little with bills this month? Your dad's hours got cut again at the plant." I said yes. I always said yes. I sent $500, then more the next month, and the month after that. Every time I visited home, I'd hear Mom on the phone with church friends. "We're barely getting by, but God always provides." God was me, sending half my paycheck home. But she never mentioned that part to anyone. 3 years into the job, Dad called on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice shook in a way I'd never heard before, breaking on certain words. "Tessa, honey, they found something. In my lungs. It's not good. Cancer. Stage 3. Treatment starting immediately. Insurance covering some of it, but the copays were crushing them." Mom called right after, wailing so hard I could barely understand her words. "We don't have $10,000 just lying around, Tessa. We don't know what we're going to do. We're going to lose everything." She didn't ask. She didn't have to. The expectation hung in the silence. I wired the money that afternoon, then more the next month, then more after that. I worked double shifts and picked up freelance projects on weekends, going without sleep to make it work. Every penny I could spare went home. At a family gathering that Christmas, I heard Mom tell a cousin in the kitchen, "Kelsey's my success story. Tessa's still figuring it out." I was literally paying to keep them alive. But I was still the one who hadn't figured anything out. Kelsey's wedding was everything Mom had ever dreamed of for her perfect daughter. Lace and roses and a string quartet playing in the corner. The reception hall looked like something out of a magazine. I helped with last-minute chaos, fixing a broken centerpiece, calming down a panicking bridesmaid, adjusting Kelsey's veil 16 times until it sat perfectly. During my maid of honor speech, I talked about sisterhood and love and growing up together, and people actually cried. Afterward, I heard Mom introducing me to guests by the dessert table. "That's Tessa, the one in the city who still hasn't quite settled on anything permanent." Meanwhile, everyone fawned over Kelsey and her husband Trent, who ran a small real estate firm and talked constantly about his deals and investments. On the plane ride home the next day, my phone exploded with alerts. A cyber incident at work, active and spreading fast through our systems. I opened my laptop mid-flight and dove in, coordinating with my team through spotty airplane Wi-Fi. We contained the breach and saved the bank millions in potential losses. Mom would never hear about it, she'd never ask, she'd never care. The cyber attack turned into a 72-hour nightmare that I helped lead from start to finish. We stopped the threat, recovered the systems, identified the vulnerability, and prevented a catastrophic data breach that could have destroyed the bank. When it was over, my boss called me into his office, his face serious. "You're the one we call when everything's on fire," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Congratulations, Tessa. You're our new incident response lead." The raise was enormous. Life-changing money. I called Mom to tell her, my heart actually fluttering with stupid, childish hope that maybe this time would be different. "That's nice, honey," she said, her voice bored and distracted. "Anyway, your dad's car just died this morning and we need help with a new one. Nothing fancy, just reliable." I sent the money within an hour. I realized my success was only visible to them when it came with a $sign attached to it. Nothing else mattered. I went home for a weekend visit 2 months later. Driving through town, I passed the old library where I'd spent so many afternoons as a kid, stealing Wi-Fi and reading programming books at the scratched tables. It was boarded up now, abandoned and forgotten. But outside on the concrete steps, 3 teenagers sat with laptops balanced on their knees, trying to catch a signal from the coffee shop across the street. I saw myself in them. The weird kids, the ones who didn't fit, the ones who found magic in screens and code. That week, I contacted the town council and made an anonymous donation, a huge chunk of my savings, to turn the dead library into a small tech center. Free computers, free classes, free internet for anyone who needed it. The only condition was my name stayed out of it completely. The town was shocked, grateful, confused about who would do such a thing. That night, Mom saw the news headline about the mysterious donor and scoffed over dinner. "Who wastes that kind of money on computers for kids? They should have fixed the roads instead." 6 months before her 60th birthday, Mom started planning what she called her dream celebration. She called it her "finally doing something for myself" party after years of sacrifice. She wanted the nicest restaurant in town, Antonio's, with the private room and full Italian menu. She wanted it catered, decorated, perfect in every way. Then she called me on a Wednesday night. "It's only fair that you and Kelsey split the cost," she said sweetly, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "I think $5,000 each sounds about right for everything I want." My stomach dropped. "Mom, I can't afford. After everything I've done for you," her voice turned cold and sharp. "After I raised you, sacrificed for you, loved you when you made it so hard." I negotiated. I begged. I explained my budget. I got her down to $3,000. I wired the money and felt physically sick doing it. I knew what was coming. I knew I was paying for a stage where I'd be humiliated in front of everyone. But some small, stupid part of me hoped this time would be different. The party was beautiful in that cold, perfect way. White tablecloths, candles everywhere, flowers in crystal vases on every surface. Relatives gave toasts about Mom's sacrifices and strength. Kelsey gushed about how Mom had always believed in her, always supported her dreams without question. I sat at the far end of the table, that fluttery hope still somehow alive in my chest. Then Mom stood up, smoothing her dress. She lifted her champagne glass and smiled that smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. "And then there's my other daughter, my little failure child, Tessa, still trying to figure it all out at 32. The laughter was polite but sharp enough to cut. The word failure wrapped around my throat like a hand squeezing tight. I forced a smile, my face burning hot. Then I stood up calmly, grabbed my purse from the back of my chair, and walked out without saying a word. Behind me, I heard someone whisper, "She's always been so sensitive about everything." I made it to the parking lot before I realized I'd forgotten my coat inside. The November night was freezing, and I was shaking from more than just the cold. I walked back inside through the side entrance, heading toward the coat room near the bathrooms. That's when I heard Mom's voice drifting from a hallway around the corner, sharp and clear. "She can't hold a relationship to save her life," Mom was saying to Aunt Lydia and Cousin Carol. "Probably broke too, living in that city, plays with computers all day in that tiny apartment. I worry about her, I really do. She's just so lost." I stepped into view. All 3 women went silent. Mom's face drained of color. "Oh, honey," she sputtered, her hand flying to her chest. "We were just joking around." "I heard you," I said calmly, my voice steady. I looked at all three of them. "This is the last family event I'll help pay for. I'm done." Then I grabbed my coat and walked away. Behind me, I heard Mom hiss to the others. "She's so dramatic. Always has been." Back in my hotel room, I sat on the bed with my coat still on, my face puffy from crying in the car. I felt hollowed out and exhausted. Then my laptop pinged with an alert. Red priority. Emergency level. I opened it and my stomach dropped to the floor. Midwest Trust, the accounting firm that handled payroll and finances for dozens of local businesses, including Mom's medical clinic and Trent's real estate office, was under active ransomware attack. I switched into crisis mode immediately. My personal feelings shut down completely. I called my team, coordinated with law enforcement, isolated the infected systems, traced the attack vector back to its source. For 6 straight hours, I worked, my fingers flying across the keyboard while my eyes burned and my back ached. We stopped the attack minutes before the encryption would have locked everything permanently. The entire town had no idea how close they'd come to losing everything. Payrolls, savings, medical records, property files, everything that kept the town running. And I, the failure child, had just quietly saved them all. The next morning, my boss called before I'd even finished my coffee. "Midwest Trust wants you to stay local for a few days," he said, his voice excited. "Help them understand what happened. Do some community outreach about cyber safety. It's good PR for us, and honestly, Tessa, you deserve the recognition for what you did last night." I was exhausted, running on 3 hours of sleep, but I agreed. An hour later, Mom called, her voice sharp. "Why did you storm out last night?" she demanded. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You need to come over to the house right now and apologize for making a scene." For the first time in my entire life, I said the word. "No." Complete silence on the other end. "I'm working," I added. "On something important." She started the guilt trip, the usual script about ingratitude and disrespect and everything she'd sacrificed. I hung up while she was mid-sentence. My hands shook, my stomach churned with anxiety. But I also felt something new and powerful. Control. That afternoon there was a knock on my hotel room door. Kelsey stood in the hallway, her face blotchy and red from crying, her perfect makeup ruined. "Mom's furious," she said quietly. "She sent me here to convince you to apologize and make things right." I started to close the door, but Kelsey put her hand out to stop me. "Wait, please, Tessa." She came inside and sat on the edge of the bed, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, like something had broken inside. "She's always done this," Kelsey whispered, staring at her hands. "Made me keep the peace. Made me understand how sensitive she is. Made me smooth everything over. I'm so tired of it, Tessa. I'm so tired." I told her about Midwest Trust, about the attack last night, about how her agency, Trent's office, Mom's clinic, all of it would have been completely destroyed without my work. Kelsey stared at me with wide eyes. "I had no idea what you actually do," she said slowly. "I thought you just, I don't know, fixed computers or something." For the first time, I saw my sister not as the golden child, but as another daughter trapped in orbit around our mother's needs. 2 days later, the Chamber of Commerce called my cell phone. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker at a community cyber safety night at the high school. They wanted me to explain what had happened with Midwest Trust, reassure the town, teach people how to protect themselves from future attacks. My company loved the idea. Great PR, great for my career and reputation. This felt like the natural ending to the story. The town would finally see me, finally understand who I really was, finally recognize my value. Then the hotel desk clerk handed me a forwarded letter that had been sent to my apartment in the city. I opened it standing in the lobby. It was a past due notice for a business loan. In my name, that I never signed, $15,000. My vision tunneled and my hands went numb. I walked into the local bank the next morning with the letter clenched in my hand, my jaw tight. The loan officer pulled up the file on her computer and showed me the paperwork, turning the monitor so I could see clearly. My name, my social security number, my signature, or something close enough to it. The funds had gone directly to Mom's clinic account. 6 months ago. "This is fraud," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The officer nodded sympathetically, her face kind. You could file charges, but it would trigger a full investigation into the clinic, and your parents' finances could get very messy very quickly. I walked out with copies of everything, my hands trembling so hard I could barely hold the papers. My mother hadn't just used me emotionally for years. She'd used my identity, my credit, my name. She'd committed a crime against me and expected me to just accept it. The high school gym was packed for cyber safety night, folding chairs set up in neat rows. Banners from Midwest Trust, the clinic, and Kelsey's marketing agency hung on the walls. When I walked in carrying my laptop, people whispered and pointed. Mom sat in the front row wearing her best dress, her smile tight and fake. On stage, I explained the attack in clear, simple terms. How close they'd come to complete disaster. How prevention mattered more than reaction. How listening to experts, even the weird, quiet ones nobody took seriously, could save everything you'd built. I talked about being the library kid. The one told nobody would ever pay her to play with computers. I talked about proving people wrong. The crowd rose in thunderous applause. For one perfect second, it felt like pure vindication. As the applause faded, a local reporter stood up to ask questions about the attack. Then, the MC returned to the microphone, holding a piece of paper. Before we end tonight, I want to recognize someone else, he said, smiling. The anonymous donor who funded our new tech center. We finally got permission to share her name. Ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause for Tessa Reed. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Mom stood up quickly, flustered, and said loudly over the noise, "Well, I always knew she'd do something big, eventually. I always believed in her." The reporter turned to me with interest. "Miss Reed, why donate anonymously?" I smiled, but my eyes found Mom's face in the crowd. When you grow up being told your passions are useless, you want to be the kind of adult you needed as a kid. Then I looked directly at Mom. And I've learned that misusing someone's name and identity, even in a family, isn't love, it's fraud. Mom's face went completely white. The side room after the event exploded with voices and confusion. The reporter wanted details and clarification. The chamber director looked shocked and worried. Dad demanded answers, his face red. Kelsey stood frozen against the wall. I refused to name names for the reporter, saying only that a close relative had committed identity theft against me and that I was handling it privately. After he left, Dad turned to Mom with an expression I'd never seen before. "What is she talking about?" Kelsey admitted quietly that Mom had told her the loan was a joint decision and that I'd agreed to co-sign it to help the clinic. Mom's voice shook, her hands trembling. "I had no choice. I meant to tell you, Tessa. The clinic was struggling, and I panicked. It was for the family." Dad's voice went quieter than I'd ever heard it in my life. "We're going to the bank tomorrow morning, all of us. And we're going to get to the bottom of this." We sat around Dad's scratched kitchen table the next morning, speakerphone placed in the center like a bomb. The bank's fraud officer confirmed everything in a calm, professional voice. The loan application had come from the clinic's IP address. The money went only to Mom's account. The signature was forged. Mom cried, mascara running down her face. "It was for the family. You owe us, Tessa. After everything we did for you, I was scared of losing everything I'd built." Kelsey's voice cracked as she spoke. She also lied about how much Tessa sent each month. She was taking extra and telling Dad, "Tessa didn't help this time." I saw the bank statements. Dad's face broke completely. He'd been turned against the daughter who'd paid his cancer treatments. Quietly, he removed Mom from all their bank accounts. He made me his medical power of attorney, Kelsey his backup. Then he told Mom he needed space from her. I announced I'd been offered a regional promotion in another city. I'd still help Dad directly. But I wouldn't let my identity be used ever again. Mom cornered me in the clinic parking lot 2 days later, her face bare without makeup. Terrified and furious at the same time, she begged me to pay off the fraudulent loan, swore on everything she'd change. Then she threatened to tell everyone in town that I'd abandoned my sick parents in their time of need. I didn't yell or cry. "I won't press charges," I said calmly, looking her in the eye. "For Dad's sake, for the clinic staff who need their jobs. But I also won't fund fraud or let you speak for me anymore." I explained I'd pay Dad's medical treatments directly through the hospital and help an accountant restructure whatever could be saved honestly at the clinic. Mom broke down completely, sliding down to sit on the curb. "I was jealous," she whispered, her voice raw. "Of your independence, of people respecting you outside this town. Of you not needing me anymore." I felt a flicker of pity deep in my chest, but I chose myself. I got in my car and drove away, watching the clinic shrink and disappear in the rearview mirror. 3 months later, I moved into a bright apartment near my company's regional headquarters, with huge windows and space that felt like breathing. Automated payments went directly to Dad's medical care coordinator. I sent Kelsey a modest amount each month while she divorced Trent and started rebuilding her life more honestly. Back home, the tech center thrived with my name proudly displayed on the wall. People quietly stopped repeating the failure child jokes when I visited. Mom still talked, but fewer and fewer people listened to her stories. One morning, I got an email from a stranger who'd seen a clip of my talk online. "My family has been using my name for loans too," she wrote. "I don't know how to get out. I feel so trapped and alone." I opened a blank document and sat thinking for a long moment. Then I typed a title: "Failure Child No More, How to Take Your Life Back." I started writing, my fingers moving fast across the keyboard. My revenge wasn't destroying my family, it was destroying the story that I was ever less than enough. It was helping others destroy that story in their own lives too. I was finally free.